Hey guys, Michael here again, and today I'm back with another tutorial, and this time we're gonna be talking about Celtic fantasy music like Adrian von Ziegler, Brunuhville. We will be mainly talking about the songwriting and the arrangement. Before we get started, let me just tell you that this type of music is very versatile. There is no right or wrong way to do it, there is no specific way to arrange it. Each artist has his own style and vision, and each track gets its own treatment. So, whatever I'm telling you here is not the holy grail of creating medieval fantasy music, but it's only how I do it, and I'm learning as I go, so take whatever I tell you with a grain of salt. So, for the intro, I started with a harp from Era 2. This one, early Renaissance harp. It's playing a very simple rhythm. And then I introduced a harp, playing a lead on top of it. And then going further, I changed the rhythm here a bit. And on top, I added a melody. And then I wanted a bit of movement, so I added this lyre from Dark Era. And as you can notice, the notes here are not exactly on the grid, so I can mimic a bit of strumming, and the velocity down there is not the same always. So we try to achieve this human feel as much as possible. And then for more depth, I added this strings ensemble. And you see there is modulation wheel, not always the same thing going, and expression. So basically, the modulation wheel is how hard the instruments is being played. I talked about this in a video before. I'll leave a link for it in the description below. And I learned recently also to use the expression controller, and that's basically the volume. So when you combine the modulation wheel with the expression, it gives it more dynamic feel, you know what I mean? And then I added this pad for some texture. Nothing fancy really. Just afterwards, I put more notes from my chord progression, and I use the modulation wheel as well. And it gives it a different feel the higher it goes. And then I wanted some atmosphere, so I added some birds in the background with some reverb on them. And for the transitions, I use these samples from the Kashmir pack. Nothing very fancy, but transitions are important in my opinion. And now let's play the first part of our intro. And as you can see, in that part here, I didn't use that harp playing the lead because I already have the whistle playing a melody. So not to have many things going on at once, let one element play the lead and the other one the rhythm, not many things at once. And for the second part of my intro, I wanted to introduce a new melody to keep things more fresh and interesting. And for this one, I chose this low whistle in D from Celtic era. And as you can see, these notes down there, they control the key switches that activate different articulations when playing the whistle. Let me show you really quickly. And then I added that glockenspiel, and its only purpose is to fill the void between the notes. Let me play both together only. So after the whistle melody was over, I made a new chord progression, and it goes like this. And then if we translate that into the sustained choir, it sounds like that. And then a legato choir on top. And I changed the harp rhythm a bit. And afterward, I added a new harp lead. Let's listen to them. And this is the lead on top. And then afterwards comes a sustained choir. And now here's how the whole part sounds like. And by the end of the harps here, I added these notes going up, like a crescendo, I would say. In order to proceed to the next section. And then in order to go higher with the emotions, I would say, I added some strings and some basses. Let's listen to the legato strings first. And as you notice, I didn't want the melody to sound so boring, so that's why we have the modulation wheel going on here, and the expression as well. And for one part here, I enabled that key switch that lets the strings play in tremolo. So once again, that's how it sounds normally. And the tremolo part again. And here are the basses playing some deep notes for those lower frequencies. Both together sound like this. The basses are basically playing the root note from the chord progression, nothing crazy. And then to enforce the strings melody, I added the glockenspiel again. And some variation in the second half, I don't really have to play it. And that's basically the second part of the mid section. So to keep this piece interesting, I had to change the chord progression again. I wrote this low whistle melody, and then the chords are played with the strings ensemble. And now here's the strings ensemble on its own. And here are the basses. And you see how the modulation is affecting how the instrument is being played. The intensity of how it's being played, I mean. And then we have the low whistle melody on its own. I would also like to tell you that in that part I changed the root note of my chord progression. I usually start with A minor. I mean, in that track I started with A minor, but here in that part I decided to start with D minor instead. So it gives a different feel. I don't think that's quite a modulation. I didn't change the key of the song entirely, but I changed how I started it, so it gives a different feel. Like that part before that we listened to, it sounds a bit happy, hopeful in a way, not really happy, but yeah. And then this part has a whole different feeling. And so you feel the contrast here. You feel how it gets sadder, it gets a bit down, which helps us more to transit and feel the contrast in the next part. And now here's my second half and last part of the middle section. Alright, let's now talk about the climax part. After the whistle here reaches its end, I let here the basses play the root note. And as you can notice, the BPM here is increasing because for my climax part, I needed to be full with life and epic as well. And believe it or not, in terms of songwriting, this part is the easiest. It has a very simple chord progression. It's basically D minor, A sharp, D minor again, and C. The first thing I added after the chords was that whistle. It's a different kind that plays in the higher register. I also let some small percussion play in the background. It's two layers. I'll play them separately. And then I added these tambourines. And these pipe drones as well. I also introduced here a man choir plus the children from before. Now let's play the transition with the climax. And then after the whistle, I added the bagpipes. And as you can see, that part repeats with a little bit of variation here in the end, so it's more interesting. And then I added this recorder flute as a response to it. Let me just play it. And then I added this tabla drum loop. And then I started introducing bigger percussion from Damage 2. And then I added some staccato strings. They are divided into two parts. One plays also in the higher register, and the others are playing just a bit lower. And I did this in order to process them separately in terms of mixing. And it's not really necessary to do that. It's just, especially if they're playing in the background, but that was just my choice. I also had the basses and the ensemble play the sustained notes. Just normally following the chord progression. And then I added these guitars to add some color. You can't really notice them, but if you take them out, you feel something is missing. And then my secret weapon here is a sub bass. I know you can still only rely on acoustic instruments, but in order to have that fat low end, you're gonna definitely need that sine wave playing. You need some headphones in order to hear that correctly. So that was the rest of our climax and till the end of our song. Let's see what's going on here. I started by making the drums hit a bit harder. And after the pipes melody was over, I introduced the whistle again. And actually, I originally played that part twice. So it was like this, and I repeated it. But then if you play it for a very long time, we're talking like 8 bars. And then you repeat it again. It it gets tiresome for the ear. So I decided to play just the beginning of it again and do a bit of variation to keep it interesting. That's one of the most important things about genres that have not many instruments, about genres that rely heavily on the melodic aspect of them, unlike EDM. Okay, I don't want to generalize. A lot of EDM also needs good melodies, but you get what I'm saying. If not, just let me know in the comments and we can discuss this a bit. But if I wasn't able to make my point correctly, but this here relies on the music. It relies on leads and phrases, I would say. So you always have to make sure it's interesting. Otherwise, the listener is just gonna get tired and stop listening. So I'm gonna play it again with the variation. And you see that G note here in the end, it feels unresolved, and that helps me advance further into the track and get to another part of the melody. That's why it's like this. And here I was able to get the pipes back again because there is a gap in between. And then I changed the pattern with the staccato strings. And I honestly love it on its own. And the legato string section comes for support. And I added cellos. And then I added those singers from Era 2. The patch is called Tavern Singers, I think. They have a distinguished tone that I really like.
Ram. Ho. Ho. La.
And then I added a female choir. Playing almost the same notes as the male one. So I'm gonna demonstrate only the string section and then the choir section.
Ram. Ho. Ho. La.
And as the song progresses, I try to make every element change with it as much as I can. So the choir here play a bit differently. Same with the percussion. I changed how the tambourines sound like now. I made a different pattern. And my tabla loop has changed a bit now. Same with the damage drums. And you see how it changes here as well again. And last but not least, I added this brass section to like epify the track a bit. Let me just play it quickly. These pipes here play in harmony with the whistle and make some response here. And then at the very end, I added this drum roll. And again, this drum roll sample here at the very end. And the sample originally sounds like this. And then I added this automation on it to make it go a bit down in volume. And then I cut this part and made like a micro edit here and did this bass so it sounds a bit more natural. Then to add more realism, I slowed down the tempo of the entire track to give it this human feel, which sounds actually much better than just this. And also you can notice that with the last note from the whistle. Alright guys, thank you so much for sticking with me till the end. I hope you got some value out of this video. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I will be answering each and every one of them. And consider of course subscribing to the channel because that would encourage me a lot to create more of these videos. And I will see you next time. Bye.